Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this presentation is titled A Bad Day at the Airshow, Thunderbird F-100D, Laughlin Air Force Base in 1967. The first Thunderbird accident in front of a crowd. Now, the Thunderbirds had had a few incidents in practice, but this was the first time an aircraft was lost at an air show. And this occurred October 21st, 1967. Captain Merrill McPeat was flying F-100D, and tail number is 55-3520 for you purists out there. And what he had was a catastrophic wing failure caused by a series of cracks that occurred in the wing spar due to metal fatigue in the wing carry-through box. Now, the Thunderbirds transitioned to the F-100 in 1956, making it the world's first supersonic flying team. And, of course, they had this hard and fast rule was you weren't going to go supersonic by the crowd. No booming of the crowd. But this incident occurred towards the end of the show. They were 21 minutes in, and it's the bomb burst. And McPeat was flying Thunderbird number 6, which is the solo who comes up through the center and does a little pigtail. Very nice maneuver, one of my favorites at the air show, and it's the typically the concluding maneuver at the air show. Now, when I was a kid growing up in Iowa City, I thought the F-100s were an absolutely beautiful aircraft. They were the first of the Century series, the first supersonic fighters in the Air Force inventory, and just a beautifully impressive aircraft. And they could be loud. When I went to summer camp, I was in a T-33 getting a ride, and this was at Otis Air Force Base, and several Guard F-100s were taking off. And when those things went into afterburner, they are not like the modern aircraft where you're trying to save the turbine blades. These things had virtually an explosive afterburner. The clamshells on the tail would open up, and they'd dump fuel in, and it would ignite, and it was a boom. Most aircraft, when they go into afterburner to kind of save stress on the turbine section, it's a much more measured response with it. You get a roar out of it, but you don't get the boom. So these aircraft were very interesting, and early on in the design. Now, when I finally went to pilot training class in the Air Force in 1973, we had 2 guys in our class of 60 that were going to F-100s in their guard units. And I thought, well, that's really cool. I mean, the F-4 was the frontline fighter. At that time, these guys had the old aircraft. They had a lot of guys coming back from Vietnam who were in the units, and they were checking them out. Well, it was many years later that I found out that, well, these airplanes must be pretty difficult to learn how to fly, because both of those guys in my class washed out of the guard unit. And I don't know whatever happened to them, but washing out of your first aircraft in the Air Force, I'm sure, is not a good thing at all. Now, Captain McPeat's position was in Thunderbird number 6. He was one of the 2 solo pilots, but his position was to come up through the center of the bomb burst. So you get the first 4 guys. They pull up vertically, and they separate to the 4 compass headings. And then his job is to come in, pull up through the center, and do vertical rolls with smoke on. And, of course, timing is a big issue here. He doesn't want to be early, and he doesn't want to be late. And they do their pull-up, and he's coming in fine. But he's got to have his speed up. You can't go supersonic, but you can be like at 0.99 as he describes it. So he's coming in, he's doing the pull-up, and it's a significantly hard pull-up. The aircraft is certified to 7.33 Gs. That was the standard back then and for a long time. And he's pulling 6.5, so that's fine. But as he starts the pull-up, and here's how it's supposed to look. He's supposed to be that center guy doing that nice little pigtail there. And he does that until he runs out of airspeed. And then he does a little, unusual attitude recovery, brings the aircraft on down. Well, things didn't go so well. He starts the pull-up, and he hears this loud boom. Well, for F-100 guys, they hear noises like that. Often it's a compressor stall. And okay, when you're pulling a lot of G, you can distort the inlet air. So he thinks, well, I got a compressor stall. So he unloads. But then he realizes, no, this isn't a compressor stall. The cockpit starts to fill with flame. And he decides, this isn't good. He needs to punch out. Now, the seats in the F-100, like even up to the back in the 70s when I flew the T-38s, they're not super fancy. You wear the parachute, and if you go out at low altitude, you have this zero delay lanyard that attaches to the D-ring, so when the seat separates, you immediately get a chute. And when the Thunderbirds were flying the F-100s, they flew, since most of the show is low altitude, of course, with that zero delay hook attached. So when he punches out, and he's going fast, okay, he's subsonic, but he's going real fast. So when he punches out, that seat separates immediately. The chute deployed extremely rapidly. The seat actually, they think, went through the chute, and because he got some holes in the chute, he was missing a few lines. His helmet actually turned 90 degrees and separated from his head. The mask stayed on, the visor stayed down. They recovered the helmet from the area, and most of the airplane was recovered within a 2-mile radius. It all ended up on the base. So there was no damage to civilian aircraft, and the front section actually of the aircraft, the nose had been blown off in the process, and the rear section had been blown off. And there is a drogue chute in the tail for helping him slow down, and that came out and is coming down, and some of the crowd actually thought that his chute had failed. Of course, he's coming down. Laughlin, like most of Texas, can be quite windy, and Captain McPete was trying not to be drugged, but the instant he hit the ground, he immediately was starting to drug, so he had to collapse his parachute. Now, as you can see from this photograph, the wings are behind the canopy. It's not like a Cessna 150 where you can sit there and look at the wings. The wings are far back, so Captain McPete did not know that the wings had actually separated, but he soon realized the aircraft had simply exploded. And the fuel tank sets above the center section there. What had happened was there's a carry-through box area, and it had a bunch of fatigue cracks. And when he did this pull, it separated. This ended up being kind of a defect in the fleet with cracks in that section, and they had to do a number of repairs to it. And it may have explained the loss of some other aircraft in various situations. But anyway, the fuel tank being above the wings, when the wings separated and tore the aircraft apart, the fuel exploded and just went everywhere into a huge fireball. Well, he was cut a bit on the neck, and at this show, the Thunderbirds have a number of suits they can wear: gray, blue, black, and white. And the white is kind of the least favorite because it can show sweat, and he's in a position where he gets a lot of soot from the aircraft in front of him taxiing, so he has to run the collar down to kind of keep it from looking dirty. And then when they get there back for the crowd to sign autographs, he can roll it back up and it looks nice and clean. Well, a white flight suit is not what you want when you're drugged through the brush there. So he said he came back looking slightly camouflaged from the stains on it, and of course he ended up having a cut in his neck, and it bled kind of profusely. He wasn't seriously hurt at all, but it bled enough, and on a white flight suit that doesn't look good at all. Well, that was the end of the season. Everybody packed up and went back to Nellis. So that's the story of the first Thunderbird crash in front of a crowd. Thanks for watching.